It's been great to be home after the really near disaster for our country with the possibility of, for the first time in history, of the United States defaulting on its financial obligations. I mean, I've been in the middle of these two events. First was on the continuing resolution where they're going to shut down the government, and on this deal. And in both cases, you know, the majority party in the House, led by Speaker Boehner, could not put the votes up to either do a CR or to keep the government from defaulting. So Democrats had to join them. People say there's no bipartisanship. Hey, on the two biggest things of the year, we put up 81 votes and 95 votes and prevented a debacle. So there's still some people back there, even no matter what Howard Schultz says, there's some people back there who are trying to keep the government functioning and doing what we're supposed to be doing. And what upsets me the most is that there's the economic theory of the Tea Party and many of the people in Congress is that we can cut spending and grow the economy. John Maynard Keynes would roll over in his grave. And you remember, Nixon said, we're now all Keynesians. We understand it. When you have a major economic problem, you do two things. Cut taxes on the people, the middle income people who will spend the money, and you do stimulus. Let's look at this community. Well, these incredible projects that, and with the help of the USDA, who's represented here today, you know, we have gone through a whole series of projects. We're doing projects in Bremerton that would never have been done had it not been for stimulus. We're finishing 2 years early on removal of the dams on the Elwha River. You all led the way here with your removal of Goldsboro Dam a few years ago. So, you know, what we need to do is not do what Roosevelt did in '37, which was to go conservative. We should be doing more on stimulus. Roads, bridges, sewers. You know, Christine Todd Whitman, administrator of EPA during the Bush administration, did a backlog look at how many projects there are around the country, wastewater treatment. 688 billion. That's in 2002. The biggest problem we have is we don't do a good job when things are going well of planning projects that would be utilized if we had a recession. And we'd have to almost now face the fact that from time to time we're going to have a recession. Now this recession is different in that, one, it's very serious and is prolonged, but the major difference is that normally in a downturn, other than the Great Depression, consumption drops 3%. This one, consumption has dropped 7%. And the economy of the United States, 70% of it is consumer spending. So when that happens, that's why we can't get out of this mess. And when the Republicans say, well, stimulus didn't work, you said you'd get it down to 8%. Well, we didn't get it to 8% because we didn't do enough stimulus. We didn't put enough people to work and doing these projects. And it, to me, and there's a timing question here. If we had, let's give you some numbers. If we are at 9.1 or 2% unemployment today, if we did not do stimulus, we'd be at 11.5%. And this would be, it would be really catastrophic. This is bad, but this would really be catastrophic with the number of people out of work. So I think in the short term, now you've got to do the spending thing over the 10-year period. But as Senator Magnuson used to say, if you want to lower the deficit, lower unemployment, put people back to work so they're not getting unemployment compensation. They're out there producing a job and we're producing goods, and those goods and services are needed. And that will, they'll start paying taxes, you'll drive down the deficit, and it's the only way really that this can work. I mean, and tax cuts. I mentioned tax cuts. Republicans love tax cuts. And in fact, we're going to have a big to-do at the end of this, end of 12, about whether the tax cuts, the Bush tax cuts should be extended or not. And that will be part of this super committee. They're going to have to look at that. But I just sincerely believe that we would be so much better off if we kept helping USDA do more projects around the country. And that would put people back to work. So that's number one. And so we're not doing that. And I think you're going to see this thing start to edge up again. And it should be bipartisan. You know, infrastructure has always been, the Congress has always been an issue that Democrats and Republicans both supported. And now we're getting ourselves because of this concern about spending. And this is a legitimate concern. But you're focusing only on 1/3 of the overall budget. 2/3 are entitlements. And that's Social Security, that's Medicare, Medicaid, some of the retirement things are, and health care. Where's Bob? Right here. Healthcare is still escalating in cost. And that's a challenge that we faced in the Affordable Care Act. We're trying to deal with that in defense. I'm the ranking Democrat. I was chairman last year. I like being chairman better than the ranking Democratic member, by the way. You know, it's gone up to somewhere between 30 and 50% of the defense budget, not 30 billion to 50 billion in healthcare costs. So we have got to somehow get control over our healthcare. We have been looking at ways to deal with the difference in reimbursement rates around the country. McAllen, Texas has a reimbursement rate twice as high as we have here in Washington State. And then they do this on a county-by-county basis. And Dartmouth looked at this and said, you know, some of the doctors are over-prescribing services that aren't really necessary. And the reality is, the more they prescribe, the worse the outcome is. Now that's something to think about. And that's why there is, I think, some hope that we can cut some of the cost out of healthcare, because a lot of the things are not needed. You know, and some of the finest clinics in the country, they don't do fee-for-service. They do a salary. Then there's no incentive for people to prescribe things that are not necessary or marginally necessary. And you always hear about tort liability. Texas has McAllen, Texas then, has the toughest tort liability law in the country. And it didn't have any effect here in McAllen, Texas. So you know, they're trying to blame it on that. So anyway, here at home, we had a great victory this year on the tanker issue. I've been working on this for 10 years. We won it, we lost it, and we finally won it. And one of the things that was decisive was we were able to convince the Defense Department that the JROC, the deputies for each of the services, and the vice chairman of the Joint Chiefs, had said in the requirements document that the life cycle had to be 40 years. Well, we're using the KC-135s will be used for 50, 60, 70 before they're all replaced. That difference made about $3 or $4 billion difference in fuel consumption. The A330 uses 24% more fuel than the Boeing 767. Well, you take 179 airplanes over 40 years with a reasonable growth in inflation each year, and you know the difference between the two in terms of life cycle cost can be up to $30 billion, depending on what, you know, they were used, the Air Force used 2.1, OMB says you should use 5.1. So they're still fudging at the edges here. Why the Air Force wanted to give this thing to Airbus is beyond my comprehension. And John McCain played a huge role in this, of getting them to cancel the first contract where there wasn't any competition. But that is going to mean that we're going to have jobs on 767 for the next 15 years. And that's going to help the economy of our state. greatly. We have a lot of subcontractors in the state. And they're also building, as we speak, the P-8A, which is to replace the P-3. This is a Boeing 737. Boeing's going to be going up to over 41 or 2 737s a month. Now just think about that. That's an incredible production rate. If you want to go see lean manufacturing at its finest, go to Renton, Washington, and look at what they're doing on the 737.